Britain in the 1950s was rebuilding. The war was over. People had money again, and the dream for thousands of British families was a car, a proper British car, gleaming on the driveway. Neighbors stopping to look. But some of these dreams came with a price nobody warned them about. Not the price on the showroom floor, the other price, the one that arrived every month. In brown envelopes, from garages, from mechanics who charged like surgeons. Today we are counting down 10 British cars from the 1950s. That did not just cost money to buy, they cost everything. Savings, sleep. Some owners lost their homes, and some simply never recovered. Let us begin. Number 10. The Healey Silverstone. Donald Healey Motor Company. The Healey Silverstone looked like a racing car, because it essentially was one. Donald Healey built it by hand, every single one. And that was precisely the problem. Hand-built meant no standard parts, no easy fixes. When something broke, owners had to find one of the handful of mechanics in Britain who understood it. One owner in Birmingham spent more on repairs in a single year than the car originally cost him. He sold it for a fraction of what he paid. The Silverstone was beautiful, but beauty has a price, and this one charged interest. Number 9. The Jowett Jupiter 1950 to 1954 Jowett cars. Jowett promised the Jupiter would change everything. On paper, it was the future. In reality, it was a nightmare. The engine overheated regularly. The gearbox failed often. Parts became scarce within years. One family in Yorkshire spent more on repairs than the original purchase, and then watched Jowett collapse as a company in 1954, leaving them with a car and no support whatsoever. The Jupiter did not just bankrupt its owners, it bankrupted the company that built it. Number 8. The Allard J2. 1950 to 1952 Allard Motor Company. Sidney Allard had a simple philosophy. Take a massive American V8, put it in the lightest possible British body. The J2 was savage, but American engines in Britain meant nobody truly understood them. Parts had to be imported from America, at American prices, plus shipping, plus import duty. One London businessman spent nearly double the purchase price on maintenance in 2 years. He wrote to Allard personally to complain. Allard suggested he learn to work on it himself. The businessman sold the car at a devastating loss. Number 7. The Bristol 401. Bristol built cars the way they built aircraft, with obsessive precision, which sounded wonderful, until something went wrong. Because when a Bristol needed repair, only Bristol could truly fix it, and Bristol charged accordingly. One owner in 1952 received a repair bill for a single gearbox rebuild. That equaled 3 months of his salary. He paid it because he loved the car. He received another bill 6 months later. He loved the car slightly less after that. Number 6. W.O. Bentley designed the engine himself. That name alone should have guaranteed perfection. It did not. Overheating that no mechanic could permanently cure. Electrical systems that failed without logic. A gearbox adjusted so frequently, owners carried tools in the boot as standard. One Lagonda owner documented every repair bill over 4 years. The total came to more than twice the original purchase price. He published his findings in a motoring magazine. Lagonda did not respond. Number 5. The Aston Martin DB2. The DB2 was one of the most beautiful cars Britain ever produced. Everyone agreed on that. What they disagreed on was whether anyone could afford to own one. Valve adjustments required every few thousand miles, each one requiring a specialist. The cylinder head alone cost more than most people earned in a month. One owner calculated after 3 years, his running costs exceeded the purchase price by 40%. He kept the car anyway, because once you drove a DB2, nothing else felt the same. Passion is more powerful than common sense. Number 4. The Bentley R-Type Continental. The R-Type Continental was the most expensive car in Britain, and it earned that title every single month. Fuel consumption was staggering. Insurance cost a fortune. Tires wore quickly and cost enormously. Servicing invoices made grown men pale. One owner sold his Continental in 1954 and bought a house with the money he saved in the first year alone. He said it was the most sensible decision he ever made. He also said he missed the car every single day. Number 3. The Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith. The Silver Wraith was not a car. It was a financial commitment disguised as an automobile. Every body was coach-built individually, which meant every repair was unique, panels hand-formed, trim specially sourced. One owner estimated his annual running costs at nearly a third of his entire salary. He employed a full-time chauffeur, a part-time mechanic, and still the bills surprised him every year. He died still owning the car. His family sold it immediately to pay outstanding garage bills. Number 2, the Princess Limousine, 1952 to 1968, Austin/Vanden Plas. The Princess Limousine projected success. Nobody looked at one and thought struggling, but behind 18 feet of gleaming British engineering was a running cost that destroyed budgets without mercy. Fuel consumed at shocking rates. Tires lasted months, not years. Several small business owners bought Princess Limousines believing they projected the right image. Within 2 years, the image was costing more than their office rent. Some sold quickly. Some held on too long, and a few let it quietly destroy them. Number 1, the Daimler D36. And here we are. Number 1. The Daimler DE36 was built for royalty, literally. Over 21 feet long, a straight-eight engine of 5.5 liters. Smooth, magnificent, and absolutely merciless on running costs. Tires lasted months on a car this heavy. Specialists were rare and charged accordingly. One company director in Bristol bought a DE36 to impress clients. Within 3 years, repair costs had consumed his entire entertainment budget, then part of his personal savings. He sold it. The garage that bought it spent 18 months getting it back into reliable condition. The Daimler DE36 was the greatest car Britain built in that era. It was also the most dangerous thing you could park on your driveway, not because of its speed, but because of what it quietly cost every single month until there was nothing left. These cars were not failures. They were extraordinary, but they existed in a world that had not yet learned how to afford them. Britain in the 1950s built machines of breathtaking ambition and sold them to people of breathtaking optimism. The bills that followed were simply the price of dreaming too big. Subscribe, because there is plenty more history worth remembering.